him say that he's gonna move their table. I hear him say that he's gonna move their table. I hear him say that he's gonna move their table. hear him saying it. You should mute that channel. I hear him saying it. You should mute that channel. I hear him saying it. You should mute that channel.
Live from Twitch.tv, it's the 9th annual Video Game Choo Choo Game of the Year Awards. And to start things off, here are two of your hosts, Scott and John.
Hi, thank you. Coming to video game. John?
I'm here, folks, and so is Scott, and today we're going to be talking about which games are the best and which ones are the worst. Don't touch me. Thank you. Anyway, we're going to be announcing plenty of our stuff. We're going to be talking about video games. We're going to be talking about who won and who lost. And
Who's gonna win this?
it's going to be a great time, folks. I'm very
John,
excited.
What video game are you excited for tonight?
Well, I can't say because that will spoil which was my game of the year, and that's going to be
right.
later on.
You're going to see all the best games tonight. You're going to see all the coolest ones. Also, this is not pre-recorded. This is fully live. I can hear you. I can see you. I can see Morad in the chat right now. Which one is the game? This is not a game to me. This is Video Game Choo Choo Awards.
That's right. Start us off. We will be talking about our first award, which is Best Music. Lorelai will be presenting it. Lorelai, would you like to bring us in?
Well, I would love to, guys, and I hope you can hear me. Sometimes I forget how tall I am. Here, hold on, one sec. Hold on. Let me get a little closer to the mic. Hello, everyone. I'm here. I'm here to talk about best music in games, and like this year's had some pretty hot bangers all throughout. Going through from JRPGs to the indie scene, music is always something special. This year, More of the same. Our nominees for Best Music are Beacon Pines, Sonic Frontiers, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Which one will win? Let's find out, because the award goes to...
Yasunori Mitsuda and the rest of his team at Monolith spared no effort when composing Xenoblade Chronicles 3's gargantuan 12-hour soundtrack, with so many pieces having variations and arrangements to match specific scenes. The sheer scale of this body of work is commendable in its own right. What's even more impressive is the meticulousness and raw energy invested into every minute of the experience. The soundtrack ranges from luscious solo piano pieces to monumental symphonic metal epics featuring traditional Japanese woodwinds and large choir ensembles. When trying to discuss, I repeat, 12 hours of music, it's hard to choose specific highlights that would accurately portray so many other songs, and yet it's incredible that not a single track chooses to take the easy way out. There aren't 4 chord loops or extended ambient cuts anywhere to be seen. Even down-tempo numbers like the lovely Off-Seer melody features multiple variations on its main motif, with slight changes in progression, phrasing and harmony every time a passage repeats, that show just how much love and effort was poured even into the music that wouldn't call attention to itself. But it's, of course, in the high energy numbers that this team's dedication has an opportunity to really shine, such as the theme for special enemy encounters, a formidable enemy. Not content with being an extremely catchy and danceable piece of symphonic rock, it's awash with so many riffs and small flourishes for each part of the ensemble, packing into a single piece the amount of ideas that other musicians would have spread over 4. And let us not forget the incredible instrumental heroics from the guitars, dive-bombing and chugging away even as the beautiful strings drown out, to the preposterously flashy piano solos. This entire score is performed with all the fire of a shonen hero, and what could be better fitting for a JRPG? With its amazing composition, passionate performances and sheer size, this is truly a score worthy of accompanying an adventure larger than life.
Welcome back, folks. We're getting right back to it. We're going to be announcing yet another award winner. So this next one is going to be Best Audio. Now, Best Audio is different from Best Music. Best Music is focused on the songs, the soundtrack, the bangers, as you will. And in this case, we will be talking about the usage of audio in general, not just the music, but the atmospheric noises, the sounds of the menu, the sounds that accompany the movement of your character. Every bit of audio coalesces into one aspect. And we will now be giving the award to the one that had the best audio. So, the nominees are Signalis, Hyperdemon, and Faith. And here's our winner.
As early as the very first time you read the title of the game, Signalis evokes the feeling of distant radio signals, so far and so removed from you that you can only sit and speculate their meaning. One of Signalis' biggest inspirations are real-world number stations, cryptic shortwave radio signals that would broadcast seemingly arbitrary sets of numbers, as well as the occasional national anthem or piece of classical music that have been the subject of mountains of speculation and conspiracy theories surrounding their origins and their purpose. The world of Signalis is similarly distant and alien. It draws from the familiar, like the sets of numbers you recognize, but like the feeling of hearing a sudden crackle after listening to the same set of numbers read back to back. It distorts itself in cryptic and horrifying ways. While the game sports its own unique in-game number stations alongside other stations with other vague and mysterious purposes, its use of audio goes far above and beyond a simple number stations as metaphor gimmick. Signalis sports a soundtrack by artists Cicada Sirens and 1000 Eyes full of dark, distorted synths, haunting, often off-key and deeply compressed piano strings, and classical swells that are employed so effectively at all of the most heart-wrenching moments of Signalis' ambiguous yet deeply emotional story. Signalis' sound work in all aspects is truly amazing, from the gun sounds that feel all too familiar to Resident Evil, to the deeply distorted and jarring cacophony of the Calibri enemies that overwhelm you when you walk into a room full of them, to the low screech that plays while your screen fills with the deepest shade of red you've ever seen every time you save your game, which is an all-time best save screen contender if that ever becomes a Game of the Year category. It should truly come as no surprise that we loved how horrifying Signalis sounds.
Have you ever played a game demo that completely turned you off of a game you would normally be interested in? Well, that happened to me with Harvestella. You took everything you'd get from a bad one of these kinds of games and doubled down on it in every way. A timer that moved way too fast, villagers with no real personality or names, combat that felt a little bit dull. I had no intention of ever playing it after that demo. Cue a couple weeks after release, and I start hearing how it's a fantastic game with a fantastic story, and that they addressed some of the issues. And eventually, it was enough for me to push past my trepidation, and wow, am I glad I did. Every single issue that I had with the demo was addressed, and as soon as I finished the first in-game week, I was hooked. Everything about the game was accessible and deep, and the story had me hooked from start to finish. And don't even get me started on the side quests. At first, every town you step into, everyone is just some nameless person. You step into that first town and you see only 2 characters have names and character portraits. So you just kinda guess that you're only supposed to care about them and no one else. But then side quests start unlocking. Suddenly, characters start getting names and personalities and their own stories that are sometimes sad, sometimes funny, but always fascinating. It's very much the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 formula, where there's just some incredible writing scattered everywhere that really fleshes out the world and the people in it. The gameplay is also great. The combat has a job system that's varied and deep, with each job playing significantly different from the others. Eventually, you find your favorites. For me, it was the Sage, with floating blades of murderous light that turned me into a buzzsaw of death. The farming is also nice and relaxing. If you want to plant every single spot in your field, you can get it done by noon of your in-game day. It's really there mostly as a way to make money more than anything else. In similar games like Brune Factory, farming is still the main focus. However, here, with it more in the story, they simplify the daily chores to things that can be finished quickly and easily with an infinite watering wand and things of that nature. You have one tool that does everything, and it makes the process incredibly streamlined rather than having you scrambling for your water bucket. It's the chillness of it that makes it work. When I wasn't streaming, I just spent hours farming and grinding in dungeons for materials, entire days doing nothing but fishing. It was just what I needed during a really stressful stretch of time, and that is what eventually set it apart enough to make it my game of the year.
Yeah, Harvestella! We're harvesting today! We're doing a real... Yeah, thank you so much for coming, everyone, to the Video Game Choo Choo Awards. And we got so many awards coming up. There's a shitload of them. I'm truly staggered by the amount of video games. Thank you. Everyone who's shown up tonight is absolutely blowing me away. I'm in front of the podium. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much again for coming. This has been really this took a long time to put together. It's a lot of work. This is expensive. It's all hell. It took fucking ages to rent this entire place out. And it's the best auditorium we could find. 100%. I know so many people had to fly out to get there. It's insane. Thank you so much for coming. Very excited for you to experience the Game Awards as they're coming. And here, I have one more award for you. Visuals. What are they? Do you like looking at things? I do. I think it's very important when things look very good. And so do us here at Video Game Choo Choo. The important thing is, we like when games look good. And we looked through a bunch of them and decided which ones are the best looking games. Here we are with best visuals. Your nominees are Scorn, Signalis, and Elden Ring. And the winner is...
PS1 graphics used to be a scathing remark upon the graphical quality of games from the aughts and into the early 2010s. These days, thankfully, more and more people are recognizing both the latent charm and aesthetical advantages of low-fidelity textures and polygonally limited environments and models. Rose Engine's Signalis, a survival horror game taking large inspiration from PS1-era games like Resident Evil, brandishes this antiquated style with bombastic effect to accentuate its levels, atmosphere, and characters. Every frame in Signalis brims with a retro-futuristic flair, matching perfectly with the excellent array of world-building art scattered across the game's eerie rooms and corridors. The UI itself is replete with details, taking the form of a CRT screen to highlight both the technological and utilitarian aspects of the world Signalis invites one to explore. The uncomfortably unhinged androids skulking about are made all the more horrifying as their lack of detailing and polygons leaves the mind to fill in the blanks as they screech and succumb to visual distortions, heightening their terror. With Signalis, every visual aspect has been considered and refined to a razor-sharp point, and the full effect is immaculate. The low-fidelity style of the moment-to-moment game is so crisp, it even manages to match unbelievably well with the high-quality sprite artwork showcased in the game's cutscenes. The game is just that stunning to behold. In the past, game developers had to work within the limitations of older hardware to create vibrant and stunning worlds, but in the present day, Rose Engine proves such limitations can be used to brilliant effect in enhancing a game's experience.
And we're back. We're back. That is a fantastic award given out. I'm here to present the next award for Best Presentation, which is different from visuals, because presentation is all about not just the visuals, but the way the game is put together, the music, the look, the style, the consistency, and all of that all go into making, well, what makes a game present the best. You can look the best, but if you don't have the music, yeah, I do. I mean, look, and I know all about looking great. Like, look at these arms. Look at these. This is me. Like, I've been grabbing our awards for the last year, just doing curls with them. Just so big. So many curls with the awards, with this big scythe. I mean, how do you think, like, you just got to get swole with it. But our nominees for Best Presentation are Signalis, Pentiment, and Faith. And the award goes to...
Pentiment is a rare video game that actually looks like the era it represents, the way that people would have depicted themselves and their life in 16th century Bavaria. The art style focuses primarily on Reformation woodcuts, with some scenes played out on medieval and religious manuscripts and art. Character text is presented as though being written by hand, with fading ink and misspellings corrected in real time, and different script styles for different status and social classes that can change when uncovering new information about a person. The audio of Pentiment is all soft footfalls, the scratching of a pen, the solid thump of a press, minimal vocalizations, and an early music instrumental score. This is all very appropriate for a narrative that's mostly a murder mystery, but is just as much focused on history, commentary on the dissemination of the printing press and the written word from the church to the common people, and the way that art can change or erase the story of a community. From the color palette and art style to the writing to the sound design, everything in Pentiment builds off of each other to form a game that's interesting, visually stunning, and expertly composed.
A AAA sequel from a game series I played nothing of beforehand is the last game I would have expected to enjoy wholeheartedly enough to call my game of the year. Yet, God of War Ragnarok manages to do so much in its expansive package and then some. Maybe there's some bias. After all, it's the game that got bundled with the PS5 I bought. But the more I think on what this game does, and specifically what it offers in the middle of its immediate contemporaries that I loathe and just have no interest in touching, the more I find myself recognizing one of the best experiences I've had all year. It's great that there's a game with so much budget behind it that still makes sure its gameplay feels good. Kratos gets access to both his Leviathan axe and Blades of Chaos from the outset, so your combo wheelhouse immediately feels stacked. The upgrade system is relegated to experience trees per weapon that gain additional stats or bonuses based on how much you use each move. The armor system also manages to feel robust, where no one setting is the definitive peak of gameplay so long as you have an understanding of how to manage your armor sets for your style of play. I can do witch time in this game, and it feels fantastic. Of course, I wouldn't be singing this game's praises if it didn't also hit narratively as much as it does visually and mechanically. It's truly incredible how fleshed out Kratos feels in Ragnarok, compared to the gruff, older man beckoning for his boy in God of War 2018. He treats Atreus here with respect, knowing that he needs to have faith in the man he raised, but is also reckoning with the bloody past he's held onto for so long. Atreus likewise feels like someone ready to burst out of the sidelines to take charge, but adolescent excitement can't replace experience, and he'll be failing plenty of times before he can truly claim growth. It's more than just a sad dad game, and it's thanks in part to former director Cory Balrog handing off development to Eric Williams and the rest of Santa Monica Studio. You immediately feel the years of criticism and praise working in tandem to create a story that acknowledges its missteps and seeks to do better. It's heartfelt at moments, especially with characters like Bodo, who just melt the tension with their on screen, or Odin, who is such an affable villain that it's easy to forget you're supposed to hate him until he gives you a great reason to. I felt emboldened to see the game's various side quests because I cared about the world they cultivated, and by the end, it felt like I knew the Nine Realms for ages. I have no idea what's in Kratos' future now that the Norse era of the series is over, but thank you, God of War Ragnarok, for being the catalyst in my interest to see what's next.
Welcome back, folks. This time, I'm going to be telling y'all about best mechanic. So, by best mechanic, we specifically mean an action that you can take in a game that just feels great to do, it's a blast, and adds to the game, and without it, the game would probably be a little lesser. So, here are our 3 nominees. Throwing a Pokeball in Pokemon Legends Arceus, soul hacking in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and throwing your guns and or the alt fire in Neon White. Here's our pick for the number 1 best mechanic of the year.
Blue mages are cool. I'll always stand by this one true fact about gaming. It's super cool to learn the moves of your enemies and use them back against them. In recent years, more and more games are realizing this. Final Fantasy XIV adding Blue Mage, to games like Neo 2 taking the concept and making it fit into their pre-existing gameplay systems. It's an idea that's understandably limited by the scope of a lot of games, especially those focused on maintaining some sort of balance. But when it's there, let me tell you, I am popping off. So imagine my joy when the notorious developer who never gives a damn about scope or balance, Monolith Soft, decided to put Blue Mage into Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Soul Hacker is one of the many classes your characters gain access to over the course of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it just might be the best in nearly every way. First, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's taught to you by a member of the main antagonist organization who doesn't really seem to care about anything because he's a crazy old pirate. So the class's outfit has you wearing their weird techno uniform while wielding 2 flaming anchors as fist weapons.
They had some guts trying to off a console, that be sure. Back then, just about anybody tried to have a pop at old Triton.
Right, I'm punching him. Noah, permission to punch.
Second, it integrates itself perfectly into the world by having you learn your various abilities through defeating the Xenoblade Chronicles series' reoccurring unique named monsters, providing them with new purpose outside of just being a mini-boss in the open world. Finally, it provides a new dynamic to strategize your party around, which helps make the game's occasional reliance on the holy trinity of RPG design with tank, damage, and healing a lot more fluid. You can make any of your characters into a soul hacker, and even further, you can make any of these soul hackers more specialized into doing anything from more healing, more debuffs, being able to draw more aggro from enemies. It keeps going, like there's so many options. While it's really fun to play as a soul hacker, the real joy comes from its harkening back to an entirely different era of RPG design. An era where a certain class was allowed to be ridiculously strong, where there were so many different systems going on at any given time with the game that it made things feel like almost anything could be possible. More games could stand to learn from letting players fool around and get lost in their systems, and in other role-playing games' case, help makes their world all the more richer.
Oh, jeez, shit. Oh, fuck. Mechanics. We've heard about the best one. And here's the thing we need to understand is that sometimes mechanics are pretty bad. Throwing a Pokeball in Pokemon Legends Arceus, pretty cool. That's why it was nominated. But sometimes mechanics, they don't feel as good as that. And that's not good. And that's why we're going to put them on blast tonight. Your nominees for the worst mechanic. Hold on, I'm a little winded. Give me 1 second. Standing up was hard. Did anyone tell you that? Your nominees for the worst mechanic. Bayonetta 3, Violet. Viola's block parry. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, weapon crafting. And Final Fantasy XIV, 2-minute job design. And your winner is...
Final Fantasy XIV job design has had a history of being rebuilt to be more accessible with every new update. Back in the day, we had resources like TP, a form of MP for melee jobs that would fully drain when you decided to sprint. We had cross-class abilities that required leveling multiple jobs. We had healers with swappable stances for whether you wanted to heal or do damage, and tanks who, if you had your aggro generation running, could barely do any damage, so you were always left turning your stance on, and then turning your stance off so you could do damage. At first, the design focus was on getting rid of redundant systems, removing cross-class abilities, and some extra abilities that sought to solve issues like button bloat. Then, on taking away stances and TP to make jobs a little easier to manage. With Shadowbringers, the jobs in the game had some of the best balance and depth they'd ever had. Most were easy to pick up and beginner-friendly, tanking and healing were more accessible roles, and every job was simplified for the new and casual player, but full of depth and strategy for the high-end players. Jobs having buff windows going out at 1 minute, 90 seconds, and 2 minutes made figuring out the best ways to do damage a lot of fun. Do I hold my 90-second buff so it lines up at 2 minutes? Or do we have a smaller burst window at 3 minutes, and then a massive one at 6 when everyone's stuff lines up? Raiding in Shadowbringers was some of the most fun the high end of the game had ever been. And then Endwalker came around, and suddenly nearly every job buff was set at 2 minutes, which, shock of shocks, when every single damage buff in the game outside of a few hit at 2 minutes, suddenly those jobs that don't line up go from the highest damage dealing classes in the game to ones that aren't really worth the trade-off you get of not having group buffs, which... it led to them eventually, after a couple of patches, shifting all of the abilities that weren't on the 2 minute to the 2 minutes. Jobs like Paladin that always did sustained damage, but not during burst windows, suddenly became locked out of high-end parties because everything was so reliant on that 2 minute window. Every raid tier in Endwalker, there have been multiple jobs that are locked out from being able to participate unless you can put together a team with friends. The first tier, it was Paladin, Dancer, and Machinist. And then it was Paladin, Warrior, Machinist, and Reaper. Of all the mechanical decisions in gaming, the 2 minute window has done the most harm to longtime players of the game. It might make things easier for new players who start in Endwalker, but it's led to homogeneity that even casual players are feeling, leading to a lot of people taking long breaks, or even just unsubscribing to the game altogether.
Everyone should play Pentiment. It's an astoundingly well-researched and well-executed point-and-click work of art with a dense narrative that's relatable, provocative, thoughtful, and oftentimes very funny. The art style connects you to the time and place in which it's set, with medieval manuscripts and woodcut art, religious texts and murals, even stage play, and labyrinthine representations of character. It's gorgeous and interesting and truly something new. You play as Andreas Mahler, a journeyman artist in 16th century Bavaria who takes up an apprenticeship in the Abbey of Tassing, working on a manuscript that's been commissioned by the monks who reside there. What follows is a story about murder, religious conspiracy, paganism, grief and sacrifice, love and community, history, tradition, art, and the growing dissemination of culture and the written word to a more common folk. Centralized in this story is the tension and political power struggle between a towering monastery and the town that sits beneath it. And as the artist who travels freely between the two, you take the lead in the investigation of more than one murder. Perhaps the most compelling part of the story is it's less about unraveling mysteries and more about making choices that you have to live with. Everything about this game comes together to create a narrative experience that you can tell was developed with an incredible amount of attention and empathy, not only to the player, but to a kind of people that Pentiment has, in some small way, resurrected to tell this story. It's so much more than what it seems and what I can put into words. Pentiment not only pushes the boundaries of what video games can be, but the kind of work that goes into making them.
Oh, we're back. Oh God, we're back. Sorry. Hi. Guys, all these great game of the years from people. I wasn't distracted at all. Nope, wasn't distracted. Yeah, so, yeah, how about all those? Oh God, I've got to recover. Okay, I'm here to talk about the best character. And there have been a lot of good characters. There was so much good this year in games, from every RPG that came out, a lot of indie games, so many to look at. I mean, we went through 30 some odd characters and hours of discussions. There was so much to talk about, so many things to go through and pick through all of them and find the ones that really, really stood out. And our nominees for Best Character are Uni from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Ronnie the Witch from Elden Ring, and Sage from Sonic Frontiers. Isn't it wild to have so many nominations for Sonic? Awesome. And no, it's the second. And the winner is...
Uni's the name. Special Forces Unit, Colony 9. We act as Noah's escort. Me and the boys, inseparable since we left the pod. My special move's Group Heal. It's great at healing my allies all at once.
I would have been happy to see any of Xenoblade Chronicles 3's main cast in this spot, but Uni was the obvious winner for me. She's a brash, sharp-tongued woman who still finds a way to show she cares about her friends. She's a healer, but takes no shit and can fight just as well as more aggressive counterparts. She's also absolutely hilarious, shooting down insincerity from anyone. Gray, a mysterious cowboy hero, often hides his emotions around the party. Uni is quick to tell him to drop the facade and just be honest about how much he likes the crew.
Come on, talk to us, Gray. Communication. You must have heard of it, at least. What about babies? You guys got any babies?
The main thrust of her character arc is struggling with her collective pasts, the continuous war that each person in this society is trapped within for all time. Uni breaks free from the cycle with confidence, leading her friends and society as a whole in healing from the trauma of the endless now.
More snuffy in water. Every time we run, why do we always end up getting drenched? I mean, feathers are a bitch to dry.
Every time being our grand total of once.
We're back, folks, and to offset all the good that we just had talking about the best character, we're going to have to point out the worst character of 2022. Now, sometimes characters are bad because of their writing. Sometimes they're bad because of the situations that they are in. And sometimes we just think that they're annoying. Overall, I think it's a great time to talk about what works and what doesn't work. Because that way, you can figure out both of them and then do one of them and not do the other one. So let's talk about who the worst character was this past year. Our nominees are Ghost from Destiny 2 The Witch Queen, Kenny from High on Life, and Lien from AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Here's our winner.
My name's Leon Twining, and I'm 22 years old. My father's American, and my mother's Japanese. So, Kizuna, I want you to marry me. Won't you marry me, Kizuna?
No, thank you.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
No, thank you.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that either.
No, thank you.
Anyway, I won't give up. You'll come around eventually, Kizuna. My motto is, if at first you don't succeed, try and fail again!
The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative has been a pretty divisive game around my circles. But if there's one thing that nearly everyone agrees on, it's that Leanne really sucks. You're introduced to Leanne in the first hour of the game, where his literal first action is to profess his undying love to Mizuki's high schooler friend Kizuna, while he cries about being laid off. In another game, there could be something to this. There could be some sort of analysis about the way women quickly become tools of comfort in the eyes of men without any sort of thought or consideration. But instead, Nirvana Initiative does absolutely nothing with the concept, and in general does nothing with Leanne at all. Leanne stalks Kizuna relentlessly for the next 6 years, while other characters grow and change in all sorts of ways. Leanne remains exactly the same, stalking the same girl since she was in high school. When it comes to engagement with the overarching narrative of the game, the most Leanne does is pop up in situations where incredibly contrived reasons are derived to utilize his single talent of lockpicking. In the last couple hours of the game where everything is popping off and things are really starting to happen, the game actually forces you to go and do a whole sequence with Leanne out of nowhere just so you can open a lock, grinding the pacing to a ridiculous halt. All of these issues on their own make Leanne unlikable in his own right, but what truly puts him beyond the pale is that Nirvana Initiative actually rewards his stalking and puts him together with Kizuna at the end. Thoughtlessness doesn't even begin to convey how bad this sort of writing is. The idea that if you stay true to the grind and harass a woman nonstop, she'll eventually realize just how charming you are. Maybe if there was any sort of chemistry between Leanne and Kizuna, maybe if there was some sort of meaningful growth as they changed over the course of the game, a story like this wouldn't feel so bad. There's even a universe where Leanne's terminal lack of coolness, despite his slightly edgy appearance, is charming. Instead, the lack of care and awareness that went into the writing of his character does nothing but bring down what should have been an amazing sequel to an amazing game.
No! I'm not okay!
Dear viewer, I would be lying to myself, and I would be lying to you, too, I suppose, if I said my game of the year was really anything other than Elden Ring. I would love to say Signalis was my game of the year. I would hop for joy if it was Scorn or Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, but it's not. It's Elden Ring. It was always going to be Elden Ring. There seemingly doesn't exist a reality where it wasn't going to be Elden Ring, and currently sitting at 888 hours of playtime on my Steam library at the time of this recording, dear viewer, boy is it Elden Ring. I honestly struggle to articulate the appeal of Elden Ring to anyone who hasn't played Souls games before. It should be deeply alienating. A game from developers that make notoriously hard games that eschews most of the conventions of modern games in order to attempt an open world of their own. Sort of like the jump the Legend of Zelda franchise made with Breath of the Wild, but years apart and many years removed from open world games as a concept being novel and new, and are now so deeply derivative of each other that many of them have been dubbed the quote Ubisoft open world moniker that most, if not all, of the genre seems to curve from. Yet, Elden Ring saw the challenge of taking the Souls series, a series applauded for its immaculate level design that is simultaneously tight and full of unique and interesting shortcuts for the player to loop back through, while also sprawling and full of secrets, and said, let's make it bigger. In my humble opinion, dear viewer, they nailed it. They nailed it unbelievably well. Maybe it shouldn't be surprising that world-class level designers could take their signature ethos and apply it to the open world format. Sure, it's not perfect. By the time you reach the mountaintop of the giants, you can really feel that they were running out of rewards to put in cool places. But the first playthrough of Elden Ring is so deeply magical, and evokes what is, in my opinion, the platonic ideal of what an open world game should be. Elden Ring lets you explore. It gives you a big play space, and it says, go nuts. It gates your progression at times, but the world is so massive while also being so dense with unique things to find that by the time the next major area is made available to you, you still feel like there's so much more stuff for you to find just waiting around the corner. This is the beauty of Elden Ring's exploration in the open world format. Most open world games give you formulaic rewards, skill points, sub-currencies, the shrines in Breath of the Wild, etc. And they make exploring feel like a chore, and the huge scale of their worlds feel more like a burden to be in than a place to play. Elden Ring's alternative to this style of design is so simple in its thesis, but is clearly a huge feat of work to accomplish. Reward exploration with something unique wherever you go. It could be a brand new weapon that you can either toy around with or become your brand new main. A talisman that will grant you a brand new effect that wasn't possible before. New armor sets that you can use to mix up how you look. New spells and Ashes of War, the equipable, unique attacks that you can apply to weapons that change how you play. New characters you never expected to meet. Unique combat encounters and boss battles, or even pathways to even more areas that are equal parts surreal and beautiful. The bounty of different things to find means the story of how your character becomes a weird fucked up badass with two katanas, one that spits blood everywhere, is written in how you played the game, which places you went and what weird secrets you found at the ends of the earth. That's not even to mention that if you find something cool that you want to use but you can't seem to make fit in your current build, you can easily respec your character for that, or save it for a future build on your second playthrough, or give it to one of your friends that you think might have more fun with it. That's the thing, Elden Ring wants you to have fun. It doesn't hold your hand, it just lets you explore at your own pace in a seemingly limitless possibility space. There are many things that I wish were different about Elden Ring. A lot of old concepts that got tabled, a lot of parts of the game that could have used more polish, but until they put out the inevitable Elden Ring 2, it really feels like there's never going to be another game quite like Elden Ring.
We're back at the show, everyone. How about that? All that epic PvP action from our buddy Scott. Just killing everyone. I bet he caught a lot of those people by surprise. Yes, that's right. It's time to present the award for Best Surprise. What does that really mean? It's the kind of game that comes out of nowhere and catches you off guard and goes, wait a minute, that was good? The thing that makes you go, huh? Maybe I should buy that thing I wasn't interested in at all. It's always fantastic when you come up with a game, something that catches you off guard and gets you excited about video games again. And our nominees for Best Surprise are Sonic Frontiers, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher, and Weird RPG. And the winner is...
If I had to think about the most unlikely series to get a new installment in 2022, I'd probably think it would be Monster Rancher. The monster raising sim franchise hasn't had a new installment since the phone app My Monster Rancher in 2011, and prior to this year, we only just got an updated port of Monster Rancher 1 and 2 for the Nintendo Switch, which simplified the physical feature of scrounging up CDs to a new keyword format in order to unlock and train new monsters. So color me surprised when not only do we get a new game in the series, but it's a crossover with the much beloved Ultraman franchise. Now, with that kind of a mix of two not incredibly popular series stateside, it would make sense that any English translation would be relegated to a Southeast Asian release only available for import. Yet, Bandai Namco truly cooked this year by letting Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher release stateside digitally for many curious and eager fans alike to enjoy. Nothing ostensibly big has changed in the formula here. You get to choose between buying a stock monster from the local town, or insert keywords, song titles in Japan and Southeast Asia versions, to potentially unlock a completely new kaiju from the hardy Tokusatsu franchise, to then raise its various stats and make compete against other monsters in a fighting sequence that's all about positioning and luck. Admittedly, the accuracy component that was notoriously difficult in previous games feels more even-handed here. You're just as likely to get hit with a devastating blow that retires a kaiju as you are to sweep an entire cup thanks to dedicated min-max strategies beforehand. Training increases your kaiju's anger meter, and once it's full, they'll go on a rampage, which could end up in a surprisingly good outcome or a smackdown from the titular hero himself. I knew I'd have a good time training various kaiju up to their retirement, but I definitely didn't expect this game to become my gateway to Ultraman after having spent over 50 hours in the loop. Thank you, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher, for opening my heart to the likes of Alien Baltan and Gamora through my time raising them to victory and acclaim.
Moments, scenes, levels. We love them. We love looking at them. We love playing at them. And I just want to say real quick, if you've been looking for a moment, we do have one fart available tonight. I really wanted to make sure after what has been dubbed the Pokemon farting incident that people are not farting too much, but you get one. And it's got a long cooldown, so you have to make it count. Moments in video games. There are a lot of them. We love them. We love when they happen. And it's very fun to watch them, and it's very fun to play through them. We love it when you get to a part in the game that completely inspires you. It makes you feel bigger, better, and cooler than you ever have before, and it makes you just absolutely love a game for your entire life. Here are our nominees for the best moment, scene, or level. The Eclipse from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Paradise Protection Protocol from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And why is it called this? Why is it called this? Brazilian Sonic fanfiction time from Spark the Electric Jester 3, the final level. And here is your winner.
About 50 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the Eclipse occurs, which sees our party at their lowest. They've been captured by their enemy, locked in prison for months, and now Mio, the cat girl of the team, is set to be executed. I don't want to fully spoil what goes down, but there's plenty more game after this, so you can figure some of it out. Going from the lowest to the highest point in Noah and Mio's character arcs in a masterful, transcendent way is a big reason why the Eclipse stands out as the highlight in the incredible story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But I'd be remiss to skip mentioning that this is a moment that weaponizes cucking someone. Someone gets broken up with so hard it ruins the entire evil plan for the entire evil group. The greatest victory the Ouroboros crew gets over their enemies, Mobius, is thanks to realizing the future is important to accept instead of living in the present, even if things are at their lowest. Also, you gotta be nice to your cat girl girlfriend, or you're done for. Xenoblade rules.
If the world holds our lives back, I will end it! It's as simple as that! It is impossible. I tried. We tried to walk that path and failed. You're full of shit! You never tried, you're just a coward! What to do? If you meant it, you'd have found a way, but you didn't even try to make the effort. Did you? So what do you know of the world and of life?
quickly. Can't seem to hit her.
It's so rare that you actually get to see a game series evolve and improve upon its core over the course of its various entries, and even rarer to see a game stay true to its roots the entire time. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is perhaps the most video game I have ever played. The sheer amount of things you can do in this game is insane, and what's more surprising is nearly all of it is worth doing. Where older Xenoblade games floundered with redundant side quests and vacuous side characters, 3 finally makes good on the affinity chart pioneered way back in 2010. You get to know every single NPC. Everyone you meet has ever-changing relationships and goals. They'll appear in the background of a quest and you'll immediately recognize and know who they are, even with the most generic of appearances. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is truly a one-of-a-kind video game, and I cannot recommend it enough.
This is who I am.
Hi folks, we're back, and it is time to talk about 2 awards that might need a little bit of explanation. So, for the longest time since the site started, we had an award called the What the Fuck Award, and it has been a bit of a mixture of oh, this was very funny, and oh, this is just awful for the games industry. And in more recent years, it's been a little bit harder to just focus on the goofy stuff. So, we try to put some of that in there, and we also wanted to offset it by talking about the good things that happened this year. So we also introduced the For the Win Award. So we will be presenting both of those awards, and these aren't actually put in an order, especially because we didn't want to, make it sound like one thing was better than the other, good or bad. It's just better to have these things listed out and to let everyone know that these are things that made us say, oh, what the fuck, this past year, and things that we thought were a good win for the industry this past year as well. So here are the winners for both the What the Fuck Award and the For the Win Award.
2022. A pretty lively year for games, but even livelier with games news. Specifically, a whole lot of bad news with the way this hobby we share gets tossed around and stomped on. For starters, Disco Elysium creators and creative co-op Zaum saw the removal of key members Robert Kurvitz, Alexander Rostov, and Helen Hindepier, prompting a subsequent lawsuit from the trio over accusations of fraud. Truly ironic that the developers of a game reckoning with the forces of capitalism and poor politics ultimately got upended by capitalism and poor politics. If this were the only sort of company-wide fuck-up, that'd be one thing. But 2022 sure gave us a look into just how little companies care about games media. Tencent effectively sundowned Fanbyte and its related sites. A shame given how personable the site made itself to its audience, and rest in peace to the 2 articles they made for its wrestling vertical. While something like the collapse of G4 seemed inevitable, and doubly so once finding out that its demise came from the joint mishandling of funds between CEO expenditures and payouts for streamers, one of the biggest shocks of the year came in the form of Jeff Gerstmann getting fired by Giant Bomb, the company then being one of several bought by Fandom, and Fandom then laying off several staff members across Giant Bomb and GameSpot, including recent Giant Bomb hire Jess O'Brien, aka Voidburger, and a long-running member, Jason Ostreicher. Jeff's been able to set up a Patreon and weekly streaming podcast setup, but this year's been a grim reminder that people making most of the money in these media verticals really couldn't care less about the people who hustle day in and day out to make these sites interesting. Of course, the true nature of the What the Fuck Award wouldn't be complete without an out-of-left-field moment, and among the several squares on people's proverbial 2022 bingo cards, Yuji Naka getting arrested on 2 separate accounts of insider trading probably wasn't on any of them. The man responsible for Balan Wonderworld, a bogus game that insulted the audience it was meant to placate, had gone on to become somewhat of a hero for the common man after blaming the game's rough development on the greed of publisher Square Enix. Then Yuji Naka actively removes a member of his staff when sharing a snapshot of the development team for Balan. Offhandedly confirms connections between Michael Jackson, actually his collaborator, and Sonic 3, and then finally invests in upcoming mobile projects for the Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy series. Truly, Yuji Naka had a case of going through it, and we could all feel that on the day he got double arrested. As we look onward to the new year, I guess between the genuine dread of being in games media and the lunacy of making your time as standoffish mean something much greater than it is, it becomes easier to recognize you truly aren't off the deep end when it comes to how video games play a role in your life. Solidarity forever, and fuck Balan's dad. "2022, for as many turns it gave us, also had plenty to celebrate. For starters, the Zelda Wiki has completely defected from fandom after its announcement of its mass acquisition campaign. The Wiki had been running through Gamespedia since 2017, and after surviving fandom's buyout of their original host, the decision to leave is admirable. Being able to hit the bricks instead of trying to appease the wants of a force like fandom, who've all but ransacked the honored tradition of forum posting and game FAQ updating, felt like something that couldn't happen anymore. Godspeed, Zelda Wiki. May Tears of the Kingdom get you a motherload of hits once people start searching for lore." In the wake of Activision Blizzard shitting the bed with everything regarding its game development, treatment of employees, and credibility as an employer, it's always reassuring to know when workers are able to get demands met, since the headassery of one CEO or project manager shouldn't cost the paychecks and livelihoods of those below him. Blizzard East, formerly Vicarious Visions, along with Raven Software, managed to get union voting on the table and ultimately have their unions recognized, or at least vocalized amidst the general conversation regarding whether or not Microsoft might make a bid for the company. Times are hectic, and in the wake of seeing multiple people lose their jobs for no good reason, it's a helpful reminder that the workers do have power when in collaboration. Finally, more games are being able to implement features that allow for more inclusivity in who gets to play. This trend has been ongoing for quite some time, but it's a great reminder when AAA studios are able to truly dedicate budget and resources towards incorporating features that games made with much less had still taken the time to incorporate. Big shoutouts to God of War Ragnarok in particular, for how much it allows the player to work with while still maintaining its core features. From being able to change the text color and presentation of subtitles, to incorporating a screen reader, to even changing gameplay so that someone doesn't have to wreck their wrist button mashing, these inclusions do show what happens when studios recognize just how much money they have on hand, and that making games available for everyone isn't going to harm the vision that's there.
You'd be forgiven for thinking my game of the year would be Elden Ring, especially after I did an item-only playthrough of it, and it's certainly a good one, but the experiences I had playing the house in Fata Morgana are on a completely different level. I'm not well versed in visual novels, but the house in Fata Morgana is one I can easily, wholeheartedly recommend to anyone and everyone. There aren't too many games out there that can put me in stitches and move me to tears repeatedly. There is so much that can be said about the house in Fata Morgana, how it paints conversations and trains of thought with a believable human quality to the writing that brings disparate characters to life, and how it acknowledges that aspect as a crucial cornerstone of its premise, how it fully utilizes the medium of a visual novel, playing with the script backlog at times to offer additional layers of mystique, and how it takes advantage of the multi-ending structure commonly found in visual novels to subtly prime the player for one of its most touching moments, so they can fully coalesce with the desires and emotions of one of the characters. How it can tell a story so gruesome and tragic and heart-wrenching, and yet provide such a satisfying and overwhelming finale. The house in Fata Morgana has many doors and many rooms. It took me several months to actually finish the game for various reasons, but each time I found myself within its walls, the beautiful backdrops, outstanding soundtrack, and truly moving script dissolved the world around me, leaving me to soak in the atmosphere of its world. If you are a big visual novel fan, you owe it to yourself to pick this one up. And if you are like me, one who normally passes the genre by in favor of games with fewer words and more buttons, I implore you, play The House in Fata Morgana. It is absolutely worth your time.
Speaking of writing, like the writing in the House of Fata Morgana, the House of Fata Morgana, we love when games write, and we love when the writing is really good. And that's why we have this award called Best Writing, for nominees that write really well. I love it when a game is written, and I love it when a game writes back to me. That's why these games are some of the best games that have been written. Your nominees are Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Norco, and Pentiment. And the winner is...
Fun fact, there are something around 50 or so different government-registered townships, all surrounding Lake Pontchartrain, one of America's largest, briniest, and shallowest lakes. It's haunted as shit. One of these lakeside towns is Norco, Louisiana, which stands as the centerpiece of an entire universe where nothing ever changes. The mini-mart's now fully automated, and the last cashier they had is now the bodyguard outside the mart. Yet, everything is happening. Boat and floaty party, you're invited. At the rocket launch in the center of the lake, totally not evil. Norco celebrates the joys and pains of humanity to its fullest through combining folktale, sci-fi, and a noirish Americana to depict a bayou town's struggle with belonging and identity in an increasingly disconnected, late capitalist world. Sometimes you're feeding people week-old hot dogs, taking in a puppet show, fueling a stalemate between coked-up Proud Boys, trawling for gators, hanging with a juggalo detective, or just having a staring contest with a stuffed monkey. But most importantly, you're making connections with people. During a time when folks in America are so isolated from each other, where you can be constantly surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone, Norco is a game that takes suburban depression and nihilism together and embraces them as understandable characteristics of human life. It criticizes institutions of labor and faith and gives space to let the people who get wrapped up within them, often absurdly so in our case, to speak for themselves. Sometimes people, gods, or crocodiles do evil things to gain power, but as much as they fight against it, even the wicked aren't disconnected from the tethers that weave us all together. By the end, Norco is a staggering story where you continually ask simple questions to a local community member or a god, and receive an incredible complex tapestry of an answer. It makes you think that if this is what Norco is like, what about those 49 other tiny towns that surround Lake Pontchartrain that are probably also haunted as shit?
Oh, sorry, I had to turn it on really quick. I had to get focused. because it's time to go over the 100% orange juicing award for when you're juicing your game hard and it feels good to play a game award, not presented by Balin this year, because his dad's kind of going through some stuff award. It goes a lot into that, but yeah, those kinds of games where you just go Super Saiyan. It feels so good to play, to shoot stuff, to win or pull out a big-ass thing, to kill things. Oh, you gotta kill shit sometimes, and you want it to feel good. So our nominees for the 100% Orange Juicing Award for when you're juicing your game hard and it feels good to play a game award not presented by Balin this year as Dad's going through some stuff award are Rumbleverse, Evil West, and Neon White. And the winner is...
When I first started playing Evil West on stream, one of my girlfriends immediately came in to ask what year it had come out in, only to be flabbergasted when I said it came out just months ago. Evil West is pure concentrated Xbox 360 era B-game THQ-ass gold in every way, and it fucking rules. They do not make games like this anymore, but Evil West proves they should. Evil West is basically just your average third-person action game, but the sheer breadth of tools and breakneck pace at which they are given to the player is admirable in a world where most games take hours to even unlock new traversal features. You start Evil West with a huge metal gauntlet and a pistol, and not 2 chapters later you've got teleporting, electrocution, a rifle, a shotgun, and all kinds of new punching to do. It's the closest we've gotten to the Light of God hand in almost 20 years, and we need more of that. It would have been so easy for Evil West to just be a half-baked B-game with mediocre combat that never strays too far from its opening level. But instead, Flying Wild Hog Games decided to follow the Vampire Survivors creation ethos and recreate the sensation of one of those fancy, insane slot machines without any of the gambling. Every move you have is tied to a different button. Left trigger to aim down sights with your rifle, right trigger to fan the trigger of your revolver, square to fire a shotgun, the list keeps going. When you electrocute an enemy with your grapple or any of the other insane, ridiculous ways you have to do so, you immediately go into a rapid, ridiculously over-the-top punch combo that literally makes slot machine noises. Couple all this with the fact that every enemy you fight explodes into comical bursts of viscera, and it all feels so damn good.
Through its slow monthly crawl out of the obviously rushed Inazuma, Genshin Impact managed to refocus itself on the exploration of truly humbling remnants of ancient civilizations with monumental amounts of background text containing the accomplishments and heartbreaks of a people who once lived there. The third phase of Genshin Impact saw the story drop all pretense to subtlety, in between an entire quest dedicated to the idea of allegory within art, often being used to hide messages from those that would seek to suppress them, as well as an entire mechanic dedicated to the very idea of matching statements together to reach a new conclusion. Results are as delicious as you would expect, as the dialogue essentially devolves into a philosophy 101, with everyone in Sumeru eager to regurgitate some 20th century writings at you. MiHoYo belongs to the school of writing where the mechanics of the plot themselves can often take backstage to extremely complicated questions about culture, ethics, belonging, responsibility, impermanence, and one's own relationship to fantasy as conveyed through metaphors like taking an anime girl out for an evening stroll, and also the times where you're just taking an anime girl for an evening stroll. Everything is what you make it. Art only means something if you bother to engage with it sincerely. Genshin Impact reminded me of this and many other things through a very tough year. Sometimes you just need a few moments every day to slow down, pick some flowers, and watch some fireworks.
Video games. We love them when they're good. We love them when they're good. They're so good. They're so fun. That's right. We love video games. But sometimes they let us down. and I hate being let down. And that's why we all collectively, together as a site, decided which games let us down the most. This is the most disappointing award. Your nominees are Bayonetta 3, Neon White, AI, The Somnia Files, Nirvana Initiative. And the award goes to...
What was that about crushing?
I truly don't know what else to say about this game. In the final quarter of 2022, I was more or less thrown on an emotional roller coaster with the release of Bayonetta 3. First, there was excitement that it was happening, then concern over Helena Taylor being replaced for the role, some embarrassment over how a lot of the ensuing discourse got handled, and ultimately I sit here in dejection and resignation over what the game is. I've got a review out for the bigger points. Rose and I spent 3 whole hours stomping on what makes this game insane to us, so it's only natural that this whole campaign ends with a declaration. Bayonetta 3 is the most disappointing game of 2022. Mechanically, it's not a bad game. The part where you play as Bayonetta is the tightest the series has felt, and the implementation of multiple demon and weapon loadouts leaves plenty of space for replayability. That said, the story commits its most grievous sin of taking the lore of Bayonetta way too seriously, and brings the entire project down to Inferno with it. Jean is an afterthought at best, and a wet fart of a minigame segment at worst. Viola, while fun as a dorky Nero equivalent, is irritating to actually control, since no one bothered to make a game all about dodging, work inherently with parries. Luca is the most disposable he's ever been, which is mind-boggling considering how much they want to make him a plot point to the extent of writing in a rich new backstory. And it's especially head-turning when, in any and all conversation about this game, I can bet $5 against anyone that they won't know who the main villain for the game even is. Bayonetta famously said that as long as there's music, she'll keep on dancing at the end of her outrageous introduction to gamers back in 2009. Well, 3 games in, I can confidently say the music's over. Get your shoes, honey, and get off the dance floor.
We're back. And it's time to go over, one of the important categories for me. The best ongoing. The kind of game that doesn't quite end. Not necessarily an MMO. Like an MMO, yes, that's an ongoing game that's going to go as long as the servers are active. But games that are regularly updated. Games that come out of, start bad and, a No Man's Sky kind of game that doesn't necessarily, it just keeps building on itself. Something that keeps on going and going and going. Gotta maintain them, gotta update them, gotta support them over time. This year, our nominees for Best Ongoing Game are Monster Hunter Rise, Sea of Thieves, and Warframe. And the winner is...
While too many AAA games are chasing the phantom cloud of trying to be too much like films and prestige television, Digital Extremes' funny little free-to-play Space Ninja game has been steadily refining itself over the years since its launch in 2013. In 2022, Warframe launched crossplay, allowing players to connect with each other regardless of their platform, a big step for any online game to be sure. But the real clincher for Warframe's position as the best ongoing game of 2022 lies in the execution and follow-through of one of its greatest story arcs, The New War. The New War is an incredible demonstration of what an actual film-like experience in a game can be. Warframe had been building up to The New War for years, and the payoff was well worth the wait. It opens with the second invasion of the Sentients, a robotic faction from ages past who have returned to take over the Origin system. Instead of throwing the player into a series of samey missions as is standard practice for shooters these days, the player first takes control of a Grineer soldier, a grunt-type enemy the player has killed countless times before. The mission makes it eminently clear how overpowered Warframes are, and how deadly and dangerous this world is to the average person. From there, the player takes control of other characters as well, including Teshin, Warframe's PvP vendor. Imagine a Mario game that opens up with you playing as a Goomba. Imagine a Splatoon game that has you play a level as one of the Splatfest idols. That's the kind of experience that the New War offers, and it's all for the purpose of contextualizing just how all-encompassing this invasion is, as well as what the world is like for the factions the player has come to know, and that's just in the first few missions. I won't spoil what happens in the New War, but it certainly has some of the coolest moments I've ever experienced in a video game. If you really liked the Azem reveal in Final Fantasy XIV, you'll like what the New War does. And once you complete it, the world of Warframe permanently changes. Locations, environments, and even the world map change to reflect the damage the New War has wrought. Some of the newest content in the game expands on aspects brought up during the New War, from the Veilbreaker update offering missions where you once again play as that Grineer soldier, to the Angels of the Zariman, which adds a unique fusion of Warframe's open world and mission-based gameplay offerings. It's always been easy for me to recommend Warframe since the movement mechanics are fun to learn, the nature of its design allows for cooperative play and interesting build crafting, and it's one of the few free-to-play games that actually embraces that structure of game content delivery, as it doesn't lock players out of content or cosmetics with an additional price tag in each update. Nobody is doing what Warframe is doing, and more games should follow their example.
Now the work's begun for
The power of the game Norco comes from subverting expectations. You expect simplicity from a small town, but you're immediately met with a Virgin Mary statue hiding an advanced bioscanner behind its face. You expect a simple point-and-click game, but there are droves of mini-games and set pieces. You expect a dry, folksy theme, but there are equal parts sci-fi, mystery, comedy, and drama throughout. For me personally, I expected something high quality, but familiar. And the thing I didn't expect was a completely new mechanic to point-and-click adventure games I've never seen before. Within Norco, your phone can add a recording feature where you use lines of dialogue that you have read from people out of context just to mess with other characters. This sounds simple, but it's completely, incredibly novel. You could make an entire game just out of that feature alone, and this is just a small snippet of Norco. I could probably talk forever about each little part of this game that blew my mind. They trapped Garrett in a decorative vase. What the hell? I'll instead wrap this up by talking about how this leads to our future. Norco won the first ever Tribeca Games Award from an institution known for its film festival, and it also took home PlayStation's Indie Fund. Just Norco, the game, by itself, by existing, proves the power of widening the window for awards and accolades within video games. Without E3 and other in-person events strangling how in-development games are represented, the door is opened to so many diverse and inspired experiences to be explored in games. Every part of Norco, inside and outside of the game, has me so excited about the future of interactive media. and is why it's so important to uphold games similarly produced, like Glitch Hikers and Untitled Goose Game. Good labor that's well cared for has a strong chance of making good art. Bad labor rarely makes good art. Norco is some really fucking good art, and we should make more from its blueprint.
How y'all feeling, folks? We've only got 2 more awards left. We've got the worst game and one last game of the year. Folks, sometimes video games are amazing. Sometimes there are a lot of really great games out there, and that's what makes Game of the Year tough, is to find the standouts. Because, God, there's just so many good games out there. But there's some real clunkers out there, too, I'll tell you that much. And, of course, we always love to highlight some of the real shitters out there, because it's funny. So we have compiled a list of the worst games of 2022. You narrowed it down, and now we're going to narrow it down to one. So the nominees for worst game of 2022 are High on Life, Babylon's Fall, and Fashion Police Squad. And here is your winner!
It's insane to think that there was in fact a point of my life where I believed Platinum Games could do no wrong. A time where I even went out of my way to buy a Wii U just to play the Wonderful 101 and Bayonetta 2. Unfortunately, that age is long behind us, and while Platinum has been putting out some questionable work over the last few years, Babylon's Fall is easily the worst. Babylon's Fall was supposed to be a follow-up of sorts to Platinum Games' developmental relationship with Square Enix that was forged by Nier Automata. It was shown at an E3 presentation to a middling reaction, with the reception becoming only more dour with the reveal that it would be a live service title. In a perfect world, divorced from the way this model has been utilized across the past few years, and to be safe maybe a world without capitalism, the idea of a Platinum Games title that got continual updates almost seems like a boon in their favor. Players of character action games already love replaying the same levels over and over, so giving some sort of tertiary hook in the form of cosmetics or pacing things out through a time-locked format has a lot of potential. Sadly, the only potential Babylon's Fall made good on was the potential to further accelerate the erosion of Platinum Games. Immediately, the gameplay of Babylon's Fall is somehow on the level of a bad licensed hack and slash from the PS2 era, with limited weapon options and even fewer combos. The core loop of the game involves queuing into missions Monster Hunter style, and doing some mediocre platforming as you make your way to a slightly stronger enemy, or sometimes even a boss, defeating them, leaving, and starting all over again. If the gameplay was even close to parity with any of Platinum's flagship titles, there could have been something to all this, instead of creating an experience so dire that a server shutdown notice was put out only months after release, and PC player numbers peaked at just 1,100 players. Even outside of the gameplay, there isn't much else to love about Babylon's Fall. Several player animations and gear sets were directly imported from Final Fantasy XIV, which in a vacuum would be just fine, but without any sort of aesthetic base to work off of, end up making the game feel like a thrift store of ideas. Despite being a fully priced game, Babylon's Fall also wanted to operate on the Battle Pass model, asking for additional money right from the get-go, though they would quickly make their first Battle Pass free. With other games that use a system like Destiny 2 or Warframe, and even stuff like Apex Legends or Fortnite, all available for free, it's mind-boggling that this model was seen as even remotely viable for any game, let alone one as rough and bare bones as Babylon's Fall. While all sorts of discourse around Platinum Games later in the year would quickly overshadow Babylon's Fall, it still remains as a perfect exemplification of all the recent problems surrounding the company. It was a project with no real ideas behind it, and the lack of direction and complete misuse of developers and their talents resulted in what can only be described as the worst.
Look upon us and tremble before perfection. You'll writhe in agony before we...
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 kinda ruined gaming in 2022 for me. I was so obsessed with everything, the characters, gameplay, and side content, that I didn't play much else the entire year. Xenoblade 3 is massive, and at a time when open world fatigue is hitting even the most casual of players, the team at Monolith Soft fights the problem by making every single mission you go on feel like it matters. Characters from disparate colonies forge bonds, and a community is formed naturally through your interactions. The main party each has intertwining arcs that flow flawlessly into the plot, bringing new focus to each of them at the exact time it feels they need it. I often found myself thinking, when is this character going to get more development? And the next scene would always be focused on that. The thesis of the plot, coming to terms with the world continuing to spin with or without you, and joining together to progress instead of standing in the way, was told in a powerful, hopeful way. Thankfully, the gameplay has also been improved, going from good in the older games to a full-on blast. Getting a chain attack through and killing an especially tough foe is one of the coolest things I've ever done in an RPG. The depth of customization is astounding as well, allowing every character access to every class so you can mix and match abilities however you want. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a gigantic, fresh package that caps off a trilogy that truly got better with each entry. There's nothing like Xenoblade out there at this level of quality, and I am so glad I spent most of 2022 squeezing every last drop of it out.
Alright then, lads and lasses. Who wants to know how babies are made? Well, you're in for a surprise. Buckle up!
Alright, hey everybody. That was our award show. Thank you so much for watching. This was a feat, I will say. This took us a while to put together, and it was a lot of work from a lot of folks. And I just hope that everyone appreciates, and that I appreciate all the work that went into it. I feel like we all did something new here. Like I edited some of those videos.
You did.
That was one of the first times I've done some video editing publicly. So that was scary. But we came together, we put on a show, and I legitimately hope that you enjoyed it. We have some people in here that watched something from us for the first time, and I hope that gave you a good representation of the kind of place that we are. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll maybe say some more later, but if you all want to say some more, yeah.
Game of the year.
Scott, tell us how, because Scott, you spearheaded this. Talk a little bit about the whole process.
This is. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much for coming to Game of the Year. Yeah, no, this was a much bigger effort than I thought it was going to be. I was like, you know what? We can make this so much easier if we just live stream it, and then turn into a huge, massive production. We had a whole bunch of other ideas we couldn't fit in, like extra skits and stuff. A lot of production takes a long time, turns out. But yeah, no, it was fucking excellent. Everyone did amazing jobs. Oh, why is the title up? What's going on?
What's going on?
What's the title's up? Oh, okay.
You're live, bud.
I'm going nuts. I'm going crazy. Thank you. Sorry. This was nuts. Everyone did a whole amazing job. Thank you to Solon, who one is running the fucking boards right now. He's been producing this entire show. Did an excellent job. Did an amazing job editing a bunch of clips. Walker also edited a couple clips. John did as well. I got mine in too, as you might have noticed with at least one of them. And thank you to Elvie as well, who unfortunately couldn't be part of deliberations or being on. But she did contribute the graphics for Game of the Year this year. She did fucking baller work as always.
Amazing work.
Truly good shit. Yeah, this has been absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad we were able to put this together. And Maverick too. Maverick as well for giving us a great shout out right when we started.
No better intro that you could ask for.
No better intro than Maverick.
And also, I do also just want to thank our patrons on patreon.com/VGCC. We'll be maybe showing something in a moment that will more express our thanks to you all. But for real, being a patron to our site really helped us this past year, and especially will help us this coming year. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed what you saw, it's patreon.com/VGCC. It's just $3. You can get podcasts and stuff a whole week early, and you fund stuff like this. So
and you love
your
this,
money
obviously.
goes to this. Yes. Lorelai, is there anything you wanted to say?
Like, one of the things I want to say is, like, I just love working with this crew, with this staff. Like, it's been a long, like, being part of this, like, is really special to me, because it's been a hectic bit of time, and having this time and being able to improv and have, we had planned stuff, but just being able to have fun and be trusted with hosting something like this, it means a lot. And I also do want to give that shout out to the producers, the people that put this all together. Everyone, Walker, Skull, Rose, Scott,
This is a
every
collaborative
single
team
person
effort,
on
yeah.
the staff had something we worked on for this.
Shout out to Franny!
Like, everyone here...
Pentiment Suite.
Yes,
Pentiment
everyone
Suite,
here
baby.
did a little bit of something, and it means so much to be part of it. And it means a lot. It means a lot. Please, support everyone with what they do, whether it's, Rose over at Horn Gal on the Twitch, whether it's Solon over at Chorby SP, whether it's me at Judgment Scythe. Like, give the, support the people of the Chooch, because all of us and everyone here are such good people, and like, I'm just really happy with tonight.
Yeah, this was a truly insane production.
Yeah,
I'm
you
so glad
guys
we were able to
killed
do
it.
I'm hoping, like, next year, it might be a little easier now that we figured out all the kinks.
Maybe we'll see how it
We'll
goes.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right.
Like,
well, to wrap this up.
Chorby being able to put the video together for my worst mechanic talk that he did when, like, it came at a time where I had completely stopped playing Final Fantasy XIV when he was putting that video together, that when they asked for footage, I didn't want to reinstall the game because, like, I was totally burned out. So it was like I only came back to the game last week. Having it, what a good job putting that video together. Like, honestly, because you had nothing from me, really. But thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Well, thank you both. And thank you everyone who watched. Thank you everyone who contributed. Thanks to our patrons. We are going to wrap this award show up with a small glimpse into the future. Folks, this is what your patron money has been going to for quite a while. So,
that's right.
We're coming in hot. We are going to be doing some new, fresh things with this website, and I hope you all look forward to it. Thank you so much for watching this stream. We'll be back soon. Thank you.
Give him the one more thing, John.
Yeah, yes, of course. Here is one last thing for all of you. This is not a Smash Bros. Reveal, unfortunately. We don't have a character, but it's something else.
We don't know yet.
We have one more thing.
We gotta retain it.
World premiere.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. The